Hey folks, so a little bit over a while since I've done a video, but today we're going to just see if the OM3 by OM Systems is a threat to Fujifilm, because Fujifilm really have, they don't really have competitors directly, because they're the only ones who do vintage style cameras. And in fact, if we just have a quick look at my X-T5 and compare it to an Olympus OM10, which I just picked up, film camera, from a charity shop. Always worth having a look at a charity shop. And a little Fujicare 35mm film camera I've had for some time. You can see the similarities. So you can see that we've got, I'm just going to pick the camera up here. So this is the OM Systems camera. I'll give you a closer look now. You've got, of course, a shutter speed dial, and you actually have an ISO speed dial on here as well. And this camera is a bit odd and unusual how it works, because the module, it was a semi-automatic camera, and you get like this module that goes in the front that actually gives it like a shutter control. And on the top we've got the film speed, and it actually has a rudimentary exposure compensation dial. But you can see from the start, the classic design of them, that they very much where Fuji were influenced from. In fact, if you look at very closely at the Fuji camera here, we've got the ST705W. If we look at the shutter speed dial on the top, you'll see that you can set the film speed, which is equivalent to modern day camera ISO, on the dial on the top. So you can see there's a very direct correlation between these cameras here and a modern day camera such as my X-T5. And you can see where they took their visual or aesthetic cues from. And of course the OM3, now I don't have one, but I've seen pictures of it. I can only show you pictures of it because I don't have pictures to a physical camera to show you. But the OM3 is very much styled in a very, if you look at it compared to an OM10, it's a very similar style. The body looks the same, but there is sort of a crucial difference. And if we look at a camera like this, which is the XM5, and the dials on the top, we've got a film sim dial, which equates to the art dial on the OM3. But then we've got a PASM dial, and the OM3 has a PASM dial, and you've got these nondescript dials that can be assigned a function. So they're not dedicated dials, is the thing. And I think that's one difference that might put buyers off. It might put people who are Fuji from switching. So if we look at that as one of the key areas, the aesthetics, the camera looks beautiful. It's small, it's compact, it's, it's a similar size to an X-T5, maybe a little bit smaller between the X-T5 and the OM10 here. It's sort of between that, and it's easy to handle, and people complain that it doesn't have a grip. But if you look at the shape of the film cameras, that's what shape a film camera was. It is trying to hark back to those days of film. That's the idea behind it. Now, I briefly mentioned Fujifilm have put the film simulation dial on some of their new cameras, including the XM5 and the X-T50. It's very much a Marmite dial. You either love it or hate it. I'm not keen on it, but it's there, and it's handy for video because you can bake in a look very quickly, and very quickly at a glance see what you're doing, and you can dial in custom simulations. And this is very much what the art dial on the front of the OM5 is. It's got like a colour wheel art dial which you can twiddle, bring up an interface that lets you do very similar things to Fuji cameras. So again, very similar. That one you could argue is a draw, because neither camera really has the edge, apart from the fact that Fuji very much put in a lot of work to get the looks from the, like Reality Ace, for example, it's very carefully designed by Fuji and it is to look like a film-like look, whereas the art dial is just fiddle around yourself and see what you can come up with, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So maybe a very slight edge to Fuji on that one. But I think the most poignant thing about the camera that maybe separates it from Fuji and makes it quite attractive to JPEG shooters is the inbuilt functions for smart features, if you like a smartphone. You can have a live ND, a live graduated filter, which means that you can do things without using filters. For example, someone like my dad, who's retired, very much enjoys using, he's got an Olympus EM5, which is kind of what the OM3 is based on, but it lacks the live ND option because it's an older model. And Fuji cameras don't have this built in. Fuji, you could argue the XM5 is kind of going down that route, but there are a lot of people who are not semi-professionals or keen amateurs like myself who shoot RAW, who only shoot JPEG, don't have time to edit in post, and love twiddling with the dials on the front. And I think the live ND and the live ND graduate filter and things like that are very attractive propositions to them, and that's definitely a win for the OM3. Now, lastly, we come down to, I'm only going to look at a few areas. I'm not going to go into great detail because I've not had a look at the camera, but we come down to price. Now, you can pick up an X-T5 for around about £1,600 today, and you'll get that vintage look. You can pick up an XM5 for £800. You can pick up an X-T50, I think they're about £1,100–1,200. They're the three vintage style cameras. And an OM3 is around about £1,800, £1,799, I think, is what it's going to retail for in the UK. And it's only got a single card slot, although it is weather resistant, which I think is good. And you've got a good selection of Micro Four Thirds lenses. So I think it's something you've really got to think about for the price the camera is. I think it's very expensive for what it is, or you do get a lens. I believe you get a decent lens with that. Whereas the Fuji cameras, you're pretty much going to get body only for those prices, or the 15 to 45 kit, which is not a very vintagey lens. And certainly the Fuji cameras, if you get some of the more XF series professional Fuji lenses and some of the aftermarket ones, you're going to get an aperture dial, which I don't often see aperture dials on Micro Four Thirds. I'll have to check to see. I'll put it up on the screen if there are samples of aperture dial lenses, but that's certainly one that Fuji is it's more common with. I mean, my Lumix cameras, you can get aperture dial lenses as well, which is really handy. So I think it's not a threat to folks such as myself who are going to shoot RAW, which is your professionals, but it is a threat to the likes of the XM5 in the sense that people who love shooting JPEGs have got all these extra functions and might decide that it's worth paying twice as much or an extra £400–500 if you go for the X-T50 to get those extra features. And it does have a lot of extra features and very good stabilization. So I think it's going to be very interesting this year for what Fuji release. I'd like to see certainly a development of the film simulation dial into something a bit cleverer, something a bit more like what you have on the X100V. Because if an old film camera can have something that lets you dial and select film, surely it doesn't cost too much extra. Even if there was an XM5 Plus camera that cost £200 or £300 more because it had a fancy dial, would be great. And of course the OM3 has a viewfinder, which a lot of people like. I wear glasses. A lot of people who pretend to wear that, I'm not saying they do, but I find, I go to camera clubs and a lot of members there are elderly, and they very much enjoy smaller Micro Four Thirds cameras. They're very popular with more elderly people because they're lightweight, they're easy to carry. Getting older myself, I can tell you, I'm starting to feel the weight of my the kit I carry. Now I'm in my mid-50s. It's you do notice. So I think that's sort of the attractive proposition of Micro Four Thirds, and I think it's a serious contender. I think if they priced it about 1,300, it would have been a very serious threat. I think the only thing that's going to hold it back is the price. But certainly, as I approach retirement, if I wanted a camera where I could just mess around and just have fun with JPEGs, one of the biggest problems with JPEG shooters, and one of the things my dad always has had issues with, when he takes a picture of something like a ship coming out of the harbour and there's a bright sky, doesn't have a graduated ND, not something you can really set up and use, but if you can have something that has computational photography, lets you put a grad filter on that's 3 stops, 5 stops, whatever, and do a handheld shot to capture some motion, that's a winner in my book, because it lets you take a really nice picture that doesn't need editing afterwards. It's whether people can swallow the extra money, because I think they've priced the camera too high. Maybe it had 2 card slots. And the XM5 is a very interesting proposition, but it does lack a viewfinder. But the XT50 doesn't, and it's cheaper. So folks, comment below, see if you agree with me or if you disagree with me, or what you'd like to see Fuji releasing, whether you'd like to see them release products for very, very keen amateurs who want to shoot JPEG, and of course cameras for professionals and enthusiasts who want to shoot RAW. I think OM Systems and Fuji need to appeal to both of these groups of people, but you might disagree with me, so comment below. Sorry for the long time I have before releasing a video. I've been thinking about what videos to create and writing some ideas down and taking a little bit of time out, and I've come back all refreshed and ready to go. So if you got value from this video, please remember to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications, because I do try and produce 2 to 3 videos a month, although lately I've only had about one a month. It's been a busy time, but I'm now settled into my new house. Catch you all later, folks. Bye.